Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we've got Zell. Zell, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi,
Um,
I'm
so
glad to be here.
yeah, so you have been doing education in the space for quite a while now. But for those of us who aren't familiar with your work, do you want to give us a little background on yourself?
All right, sure. I am Zell. I am based in Singapore, and I've been a front-end developer for about 7 years so far. Started, I think, in 2013 or 2014. And it's funny because I was in finance background previously in my penultimate year of school. I just decided to start learning how to code,
Mm,
and that I literally went full in on development ever since then.
cool, very cool. And so today we're talking about something that I think is really, really interesting, which is writing JavaScript without a framework. And when you say without a framework, you mean like no framework. You're not bringing in anything?
Nope.
Awesome.
For today, we're building the drag and drop together, and I was building it earlier just to make sure I know what I'm talking about when I talk to you in this show, right? And I
Sure.
managed to get it down to 77 lines.
Wow. Okay. So that actually I think is a really interesting thing to bring up because like if we rewind all the way back to the early days of my web development, the early 2000s, I remember writing JavaScript, and I when I looked it up, it wasn't even called JavaScript, it was called DHTML. And I was trying to do things like I wanted to have pop-ups or I wanted to move something, and it was so hard. Like the browsers are so inconsistent. I had to write, not you couldn't just write one piece of JavaScript. You had to write a browser detector, and then you had to write different JavaScript for each browser, and it always felt really rickety, and it would break at a moment's notice. And so then jQuery came onto the scene, right? And so jQuery kind of smoothed over all these browser inconsistencies and made it possible for suddenly I felt like I could actually write JavaScript. I didn't feel like I was fighting it so much. Um, and so what you just described doesn't sound like the no framework JavaScript that I remember, right? So what do you think has changed that's made it possible to write a 77 line pure JavaScript drag and drop?
I think there's a lot of improvements that are going in the JavaScript space that we do not really give the credit. We do not really give enough credit for the developers of the different browsers they're bringing together. Just take
Mm-hmm.
for example, like jQuery. When you started, it was DHTML. I did not start from that era. I probably could if I started from that era, but I started learning JavaScript from jQuery onwards,
Okay.
and jQuery really helped me think about building components on a JavaScripty basis. That was the only thing I knew about components JavaScript back then, and there was this period of time where everyone was saying jQuery is going to be dead, and then that's where I think there was a transition from jQuery to HTML, like
Mm,
around ES6 when ES6 came out.
right.
So that was a major development during that period that I think allowed us to drop jQuery and all the frameworks from there. But of course, like ES6 alone by itself is also very much inspired by jQuery. So that
Right.
really helps.
Well, I think this is one of the things that I think is so interesting, right? Is and this is where I think like you said, we have to give credit to the people building browsers and people writing JavaScript because what we've seen is this kind of emerging model where because of jQuery and because of what it did for like giving us this idea of the query selector and stuff like that, we saw a query selector get built into the browser, which is beautiful. Like what a wonderful way to work.
Yeah.
But then we've seen other things too, where like Babel as a project emerged to give us access to ideas in JavaScript. We could try something and have an idea while it was still a proposal and we could use it. And then the browser vendors have looked at that as like, well, everybody's using this feature. Like that's a strong sign that it's worth exploring. And so we're seeing like ideas from the community, framework based ideas get adopted by the browsers and things get built in. And it feels like over time, this has really made it feel like for a lot of applications, for a lot of like kind of straightforward things. I need to solve one problem, or I'm trying to handle a form submission or something. There's no reason to reach for a framework anymore, because all of the greatest ideas of the frameworks are being rolled back into the browser. And I really, really like that philosophy, right? Like it's not an either or. The frameworks blaze the path and try things, and then the browsers adopt the things that stick around. Have you kind of felt the same way?
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way. And I'm really thankful to the people who are blazing trails with the different frameworks out there, because they help me think about not just the browser, not just developers building browsers themselves, but they also help me rethink about how I am building things. Like right now, most recently, I'm trying to wrap my head around XState and state machines, which is like the next thing that came out after React and Vue and frameworks, and generally because of the state management issues. But in the past, when I was starting with jQuery, I would not even think about state management that way. I would just literally pop everything into the DOM and rely on the DOM as a source of truth and pop everything back. Right, but right now we don't even need that. We can just put it into do object-oriented programming, for example, add a state variable in there and use it somewhat like React's set state, for example.
Yeah,
and that changes the way I think about things too. So yeah, really thankful to these people who are blazing trails there, both in terms of the browser developers adopting the new things they built into the browsers themselves, and also changing the way I think about writing JavaScript.
Yes. Yeah. And I think maybe if anybody's watching this and like wondering if this is a like plain JavaScript versus frameworks, that's not what this is. What we're talking about today is like the applications of one versus the other, and how far you can go before you need a JavaScript framework. And so maybe that actually brings up a good question, which is, Zell, when you're thinking about building applications that are going to require JavaScript, like what's the level of complexity where you would start to think about using a framework or like bringing a framework in?
At this point, because I've been trying to build complicated stuff like drag and drop with plain JavaScript, I really do not have an answer to whether the actual point where I'll bring in, because what I'm seeing is there's so many things that I think it's impossible to build without frameworks and can actually be built with frameworks. So I'm trying in the process of relooking at components and figuring out what can be built without, what can be built with, and whether each one makes sense. But the way I'm thinking about things right now, it's more of if I have something complicated that requires me to manage state, like more like an app related thing, then I'll definitely go for frameworks first, because I was looking through the location API and history API the other day, and it's going to be really messy to figure that one out. But when I figure that one out, maybe my ideas will change.
Something really interesting that I heard that stuck with me for a long time, and this is how I start thinking about it, is someone said, and I wish I knew who the quote was. Chad, if you know, post the link so I can include it in the show notes. But somebody said to me in a talk, if you're not using a framework, you're building a framework. And I think that that's a really interesting way to think about it, because all frameworks at their core are just JavaScript. So somebody sat down and said, how can I solve this problem with JavaScript in a way that is, predictable and easier to think about and kind of more optimized for developer experience? And that's what React is. That's what Angular is. That's what Vue is. They're just JavaScript tools that package up JavaScript functionality to give us different kind of ease of use benefits. And so when I start thinking about building something, there's a level of complexity where I start to realize I can absolutely build this with plain JavaScript, but then I have to document how it was built. I have to train the rest of my team. I have to remember when I come back to this in 6 months, why I made the decisions that I made. And the burden of maintaining and training and documenting that code, it exceeds the burden of learning the framework, because the framework comes with documentation and examples and user contributed code that I can install through NPM. And so that kind of tends to be the tipping point for me, is when I feel like it's going to be more work to keep my ideas alive than to rely on a community that's kind of maintaining this stuff for me, for whatever that's worth. But yeah, I'm still like, I'm finding though that I'm rolling that line further and further back now to where I'm much more willing to just throw out plain JavaScript these days. I've built a handful of projects recently where I was like, oh yeah, I should probably get like a Gatsby site or something put up. And then I actually thought about it. I was like, wait, all I really need is like a query selector and a event handler. So like maybe I shouldn't stand up React for this. And modern JavaScript makes that so approachable that like that's a reasonable choice now. So with that being said, like maybe we should jump over and actually start looking at some code.
I think there's one point I can add to that, because it just came to my mind about at which point would I actually switch to a framework.
Sure.
So what I noticed was it's really hard to render things without a framework so far. Like, Vue and React, they give you this render function where you can populate templates, populate data into templates, and then they just get re-rendered like magic when you change the data. Right? But if you want to set something up with vanilla JavaScript, you kind of have to go through lit HTML, and I don't know, I haven't researched on that front yet. But the moment you do that, you're building your own framework already. So I think for me, that's the tipping point right now. Cool.
Yeah. I mean, and absolutely, that like those render functions are immensely complex. And so I think that's a really good point to bring up. So I think, so today what we're building is we're going to be focusing on drag and drop, which I would personally consider to be a difficult thing, right? Because when I'm thinking about it, there's a lot that has to go into a drag and drop component. We have to pay attention to where the mouse is. We have to be aware of the DOM elements. We have to be aware of which DOM element is being clicked. We have to be aware of all of the order of the other DOM elements. And then we have to, keep track of how to order them. So that's pretty complex, right? And so I'm really, really excited to give this a shot and see how we can do this with plain JavaScript. So first things first, let's get some links out here. So make sure you go follow Zell on Twitter. There's the link right there. And also keep in mind that the show today is being live captioned. It's at lwj.dev/live. And that captioning is being provided by White Coat Captioning. Amanda's helping us out today. Thank you so much. And the captioning is provided through the generous support of our sponsors. We've got Netlify, Fauna, Sanity, and Auth0 all kicking in to make this show more accessible to more people, which just warms my heart all the way through. So make sure you go check that out. lwj.dev/live. Let me drop a link. There you go. So with that, Zell, I'm ready. I want to write some code. So where should I start?
The HTML file.
All right. So let me make a new directory. Go pure.js. I'm going to actually spell it out. Drag and drop. Okay. So we'll move into this. I'm going to git init so that code behaves, and then let's open this thing up. All right. So we have an empty folder. So I'm going to create an index.html. And then do you want me to just kind of like scaffold out the basic document structure?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead and scaffold out the basic document structure.
Where are you at, Emmett? Oh, it always chooses nunjucks, and I don't know why. Just be HTML.
Or you can configure it for a file.
Here we go. Okay, so here's our plain HTML document, and we'll say no framework, JavaScript, drag and drop. Okay, so that is a basic drag and drop. And then if I come in here, I can do like npx serve, and this is going to open up our page at localhost 5000, which I'll open here. Okay, so here's our site, and I'm just going to pull this over kind of small. We'll pull this over here, and I'm ready.
Cool. So I guess the first thing we want to do is to create some elements that we can, drag and drop. Okay. So in this case, I want to scaffold it a little bit further, and let's create something called a pick zone, and let's create something called a drop zone.
Okay, so we want to make a pick zone and a drop zone.
Yeah.
All right. And how do you want to do that with like a div or?
We can do that with a div. You can use classes or you can use data attributes. Either is fine.
Okay, so let's
I
do
kind
a
of want to use data attributes.
Okay.
I prefer data attributes because
So like data pick zone like that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then we'll go div data drop zone.
Yep.
Okay.
At this point, I just kind of want to mention that when it comes to drag and drop, the first thing that actually came to mind when I did my research was the native drag and drop API.
Wait, there's a native drag and drop API?
Correct. There is a drag and drop API for.
What? Okay. All right. I had zero idea that this existed. Okay.
Yeah, but this doesn't work for the drag and drop that we're trying to build. So the difference between this drag and drop and the one that we're trying to build is for this one, it behaves more like, if you're on a Mac and you drag folders around, the item will have a transparency, and then that gets dragged around. You can place it above other things.
Sure.
But you cannot tweak it or change the angles and all that stuff. It's not so flexible in that sense. So what we're going to do is to rely on the mouse down, which is very, very old. But
yes,
mouse down doesn't work with touch. And there's this addition to JavaScript that is the pointer events. So we can do pointer down instead of mouse down.
Oh, nice.
Which works with touch as well.
Nice, very cool. So quickly to answer a question in the chat, Ben asks, what's the benefit of using npx serve versus opening the file in the browser directly? In the instance that we're using it right now, there's none. The reason that I end up doing it is because I like having the URL, so that's just kind of a vanity thing. And then also, if we wanted to use anything that was going to do asynchronous requests or anything like that, you can get weird CORS issues or other kind of like browsers sandbox things in a way. So to get predictable behavior, I like to have a URL. That's generally my reasoning. But there's no like right now this would open in the browser the same way that it's opened right here. So did you want me to like do just a script tag here?
Sure, we need to add some JavaScript, and we probably need to add some CSS as well. So
so I'll do a style tag up here. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, we want to create. Let's create some sort of style for each of the zones, right?
Okay.
Maybe let's have a minimum height of 100 pixels, maybe.
Okay, min height of 100 pixels. I guess I can do that on both, so we'll do data drop zone as well.
Yep.
And then maybe so we can see them, we'll do like a background of light gray, or I guess I can just use.
Or we can do a border with like 3 pixels dotted black, just to indicate that. Because I kind of want to use a background to indicate the draggable elements themselves.
No, that's a good point. And then let's do just a little bit of margin top, so that they are separated.
Yep, cool. The next thing we want to do is to create the items that we're going to drag and drop, right? So let's create some elements inside the pick zone.
Okay. Do you want me to do these as a certain type of element?
I think a div would do as well for now. I haven't thought about the accessibility parts to the drag and drop itself.
Okay.
So I'm just going to stick with div for now.
Do they need anything other than like a class?
Just a class would do. If you do not want to have content inside, we can go to the CSS and add it as a box or something. Give it a width and height and some background. They'll do.
Okay. Yeah. So so maybe we can do like do item. And we'll make it display, or it's already display block, so we can make it a background of like, we'll do Rebecca purple. I like that one. And we'll do a width of 50, height of 50. And maybe we can make this one like display flex, and we'll...
Or we can do display grid.
Oh yeah, display grid, that's a good one.
Yeah,
And
display
then,
grid with auto fit or something.
Is it like, that's not right, is it?
Repeat. Put it inside a repeat.
That's right. I'm missing something. Repeat auto fit.
Auto fix, and then there's a value. I would say min max 0 and 50 pixels.
0 and 50 pixels?
Actually,
I'm doing something wrong here.
It's kind of not like that, but
I'm getting something very wrong, and I don't remember what it is.
I don't know if can I like throw a value inside the chat or something, and you pick it up from there.
Oh, here it is. I got it. There it is.
Yeah.
And then we can set the gap to like 1 rem. Oh, gotta finish my stuff. There it is.
There it is. Okay, cool.
And then you want to see some cool stuff? I'm gonna vertically center in CSS. So we'll align items center, and then down here we can justify content center. Grid is magic. I love how many problems that has solved for us.
I keep using grid, and there's this thing where people say flex is for one directional layouts and grids is for 2 directional layouts. I kind of beg to differ because grids can be used for 1 directional layouts as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, cool. So, all right. So we've got kind of a general setup here. I'm going to make the color on this white so that we can see. Good. And all right. So this is, we're probably going to win design awards for this, I think.
Nice.
Okay. So I'm going to, let's see, I'll collapse this down for now so that we can see what we're working with. Here is our items, and here is our script. So what's next?
Next is to be able to select the elements. So let's look through all of the 3 items and add an event listener to it.
Okay, so to get all of the items, I'm going to use query selector all, right? And we'll get our item. And then this now is an iterable, which, do you know? Okay, so this is something that like, I know how to use it, but I don't understand why. Do you know why it's an iterable and not like an array?
I'm not too sure actually, but it's not really an iterable at this point because some browsers it just happens that query selector or some browsers have implemented a for each method into query selector or but other browsers did not. So I was trying it out a little bit here and there, and I kind of realized that. So if you want to do a for each, it's better to turn it into an array specific.
So we can spread it.
Correct.
And then we'll get an item. And then here we can do something to each element. So what should I do?
Add event listener.
Okay, so we'll go item, add event listener. And did you say pointer down?
Pointer down.
Okay, and so what this is doing, if I'm understanding correctly, is pointer is sort of a broader term for both your mouse cursor and your finger. So if you're on touch, your pointer is your finger, and if you're on like a typical browser, when I'm clicking, it's a pointer down event.
Correct.
Okay.
And it works for styluses, pens, and all that stuff.
Very cool.
It's more of a forward-thinking event that the guys have thought up. I do not know who thought this up. I think it's brilliant.
That's so much nicer than having to write. I remember having to write like the mouse down and the touch down and all of the different events, and you just kind of have to duplicate that logic. So this is really nice to have that abstraction. Okay, so now whenever we click on one of these, what we should see is item clicked. So if I open up my browser here, reload the page, and then now whenever we click, we can see it's counting up, and that's that pointer down event. Okay, excellent. So then what should I do?
Well, then the first thing is, okay, we want to have some sort of style to know that we are actually trying to, drag this thing, right? So maybe we can go to CSS and add a cursor to move for each of these items. So we know that they
Okay.
are actually draggable.
Cursor move.
Yep. And while we are
And
at it,
look at that.
I think, yeah, while we're at it, I think it's also important to add a touch action and set it to none, I think.
Okay, so touch action. I'm not familiar with this one. What does this one do?
So this one basically means if a person touches the item that you're talking about, what do you want to do? By default, it pans the website. So like up, down, pan.
Oh, I
And if
got
you
you.
set touch action none to this specific thing, it means that I'm not going to pan the website. You can do whatever you want with it.
Gotcha. Okay. I never would have considered that. I would have just waited for the bug report to come in. Okay.
So it's a matter of if you want to use pointer down and support touch at the same time, you need to use touch action.
Okay. And then there's a question in the chat about browser support. Is this something that we'll have to polyfill for Safari?
I don't think so. Touch action actually works on Safari, if I remember correctly. Let me just check.
Let's see. So
Touch action works. Oh, not in Safari 14.
okay.
So this is something you might want to polyfill.
Okay. So we'd have to okay. So we would need a polyfill for this. I think for the purpose of learning, I think we can leave that part out for now.
Yeah, I just realized pointer down also needs a polyfill for Safari.
Okay, so touch action and
But it's strange because I was testing on Safari and it worked for pointer down on a mouse. So I'm not too sure regarding that.
oh, interesting. Okay, so maybe that's something that is changing or that was recently released. But yeah, so what we should see though is that this is something that's being adopted by browsers, and so we should see soon that this will be universally adopted. But yeah, so now what we've got is we've got some basic styles here, so that when I hover over this, I get the mover, and when I click on it, we're aware that I'm like down. And the reason that we're using pointer down is because that's the drag, like I'm clicking and holding, right?
Not yet. Pointer down, it's a setup for the drag because with pointer down, it's you're telling the cursor that this is the down, because if you want to drag and drop, you have to pointer down and then you move the pointer.
Gotcha.
So
Okay. Yeah.
There's three different events that we have to set up. One is pointer down, one is pointer move, and one is pointer up. But let's take it one step at a time. Let's create some styles where the moment when we set pointer down, let's change the item to say a rotate of -5 degrees.
Okay.
We know we're actually rotating it, and okay, this is the style when we are dragging it.
Okay. So should maybe I do this with like I'll add a class of dragging so that we can do the styles up here. Does that make sense?
Makes sense? That's possible.
And you wanted to transform, rotate, you said -5 degrees?
Any amount you like.
Okay, so I've done that. I'm clicking, and there we go. So now when I click, and we haven't removed that class, but as soon as I pointer down, we can see that it rotates.
Yep. So we need a pointer up to remove that class in that case.
Okay, so we can item.add event listener, and we'll say pointer up.
Yep.
Get our event, and we'll say item class list remove, and we'll just remove dragging. And this one felt like a superpower when I learned it, because prior to that, I thought that I would have to get like the string of classes, because right now what we've got is we've got item space dragging. And so I thought I would have to like get the classes and do a regex to replace dragging and then put it back in. And so when I learned that you could get the list and then use these add and remove properties, it felt like a superpower. But so now,
makes things so much easier.
down, up, down, up, down,
Yep.
up. Look at it go. And check this out. Now I can make it, I can do transition on it. So transition, and we'll just do for ease, all 200 milliseconds, and we'll go linear. And so now when I reload, now it's animated. That's maybe too slow.
I would be careful about the transition because the moment we add move to it, it's going to go haywire.
Oh, is it? Okay, all right, we'll leave that out then. Okay, fine.
I think so. Especially if you use all. But if you use if you work on the transform only, then it's fine.
Okay, I got you. But yeah, so this is going to be good. Like, so we've got a good. As I'm clicking, we can see that things are reacting to that. So now, are we ready to move, or is there any other setup that we want to do here?
So at this point, it's what I'm going to talk about next is it's probably a little bit purist in a sense because if we do pointer down, then we don't need a pointer up event unless the pointer down comes in first, right? So we can actually shift the whole pointer up event into pointer down, and then we can remove the event listener whenever that is not needed.
Like this?
Yeah, and we kind of have to create a callback, a name callback for the pointer up callback. So we can create a function and call it move or something.
Okay, so
I mean up. Yeah. It should be up because move will be for move.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. So we'll go up.
Yep.
Up. Okay, and then when we want to remove this,
I don't think we can use an anonymous function, so no arrow function. Oh wait, this is fine. We need to remove it by saying item.remove event listener inside up.
Inside up.
Mm-hmm. I don't think many people remove event listeners, but it's more like a cleanup thing. Pointer up. Yep, that's it.
Okay. And so if I'm understanding this correctly, what we're doing here is we're saying when you start with the pointer down, we're going to add this class. And then when you let the pointer up, we're going to remove that class, and then we're going to remove the event listener. So effectively, we're saying the only time that we'll have that pointer up event listener is if you start dragging here. And that actually is kind of important because I could click down here, move over here, and then let go, and that would do something weird. So now what we're doing is we're only letting that event listener exist in this case. And every time that we add it, we're not stacking more event listeners, which would be, in this case, probably harmless, but in a lot of cases that can get us into trouble.
Yeah, so I kind of want to put this in as a way of it's not really an optimization, but it's more of a fundamental cleanup basis. So I just want to mention this before you move on.
It seems like something that I think I would put under like good hygiene. When you're writing code like this, event listeners seem harmless, but when you start to scale this up and you've got like hundreds or thousands of DOM elements, stacking event listeners like that will drag the page to a halt. So when you hear people talk about like, you know, framework performance or JavaScript being slow, or you go onto a page, like if you go to one of those pages that has the ads that move around and the page is like juddery and slow, it's because they're not using good code hygiene, or because there are like tens of thousands of event listeners and various JavaScript actions all happening at the same time that kind of overwhelm the browser. So this is just a good thing to get in the habit of, I think. So that's a really good call out.
Okay, cool. So the next thing we want to do is I think we're almost ready to drag, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so let's start with the dragging. So to drag, we kind of need to have a move function and a move event listener, because otherwise there's no dragging at all.
Okay, so I'm going to follow the same pattern here. And in this one, I have no idea what I should do, so I'm just going to watch.
Just leave it empty for now, but we need to add the event listener for move.
Oh, right. So let me go here.
Yeah, pointer move. Yep, correct. And to clean it up, we need to remove the pointer move event listener when we release the pointer. No, it's in up.
Oh, in up. Okay, cool. So we'll get rid of this. And okay.
That makes sense because you do not want to remove the move event listener. Otherwise, you move like 1 pixel and then that'll be the end of it.
Okay, yeah, that's a great point. That's again a thing that I would have figured out when it broke on me. And
it broke on me a few times, so I'm just calling it out first. The worst thing is you forget to release the pointer move. So each time you click on it, you add a pointer move event or that.
Oh.
And suddenly the things goes like, why is it so far away from the mouse?
And so that's actually a really good point because what you're talking about there, that's what we were just talking about with stacking event listeners, is that if our move is going to say like when you move the mouse, move the div by that much distance. If we stack 2 of those, then we've doubled it. Stack 3, we've tripled it, and so on and so forth until it's like you click and it just shoots off the screen immediately.
Yeah. And that reminds me of accordions I've built in the past where I accidentally stacked event listeners without knowing, and it goes like click and open, close, open, close, open, close, open, close. So yeah. Okay, cool. I think we can start the drag now. To drag the element, the most important thing is to be able to move it around. So moving things around, I think the easiest way to do it, there are 2 different methods. One is to change the top, bottom, left, right position, and one is to change the transform position. In this case, I think changing the top, bottom, left, right is easier. Again, not really thinking about it too much from the performance standpoint at this point, because otherwise it gets really hard to try and write transform related code. It's really way too hard. So to change top and left, most primarily we'll be changing the 2. We need to set the position to absolute.
Okay. And so
we'll do that in down. So it's more of like a setup before we drag.
So can I put that in our dragging class?
Right. Can.
Okay. So I'm gonna go position absolute. Okay.
Yep. And then you can try clicking and see what happens at this point.
Oh, I got to refresh before that works. Okay, so it immediately gets kind of weird. Oh, and check this out. So this is where it's interesting because I click, right? Now I'm going to release my click. I've released my click, both hands up. You can see them. But in order to get this to remove, the pointer up has to fire inside of this div. So I have to click and pointer up inside, and that actually causes it to reset. And so that's kind of the interesting thing about these events is that they're aware of where they are in the DOM when they fire.
And since we're talking about this one, I'm going to jump in ahead and add this thing that we should probably talk about.
Okay.
And that is pointer events has this method called set pointer capture and release pointer capture.
Okay.
So what this does is if you click, let's say when you click on 3 right now, it goes all the way to the left. But if you set pointer capture, it says that it tells the browser that whatever pointer event that is going to happen is going to happen to this item that is being moved.
Okay.
So in that case, when you release it, even though it's not on the element itself, it will act as if it was on the element.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And so where would I place that?
You have to place it inside down because we're doing a setup.
Okay.
So it'll be like item.setPointer capture. Yep, that one.
And is it a function?
It takes in an event.pointer ID. So it takes that ID for the event, which is present for pointer events. ID with a capital I.
Like that?
Yep.
Okay.
And then in up, you have to do a, let me go to my up. You have to do a release pointer capture.
And same thing?
Same thing.
Okay.
You can give it a try.
All right. So I'm going to refresh the page and I've clicked. It bounced out. I'm releasing and it's back. Okay, cool. That's really nice. I didn't realize that was possible.
Yeah, this is the key to making all of this work. Because I noticed this when I did mouse move, and it's possible that your mouse will move so much faster than what the DOM can refresh. And so you move out of the item itself, and then when you try to mouse move again, you're just pushing the brick around. So
Got
this
you.
solved that
Okay.
problem.
Nice. Okay. Well, I gotta be honest. Like, this is really clean. Like, this feels really good to use because everything that we're doing, it makes sense. As I'm reading this, as long as I know the vocabulary, as long as I know what a pointer is, and as long as I know what an event listener is, this feels very like I can read what's happening, and that's really nice. It's kind of clear, almost human readable, as long as you've got some jargon.
Yep. So the next thing to do is to, well, if you think about position absolute, so this is another hygiene thing. So there's layers of hygiene stuff inside this drag and drop component. If you think about position absolute, it is only absolute to the containing element that has a position set to relative.
Right.
Right. So if we want to set position to absolute, we must make sure that item actually gets removed from the current position in the DOM and added to the body, because the body will always be relative to the body itself.
Got it. Okay. So then we want to, on pointer down, what we would like item remove.
We can simply do a document.body.append item, because that will remove the item and append it. Since we are talking about the same item, it does the two things at the same time.
Append item like this.
Yep. Yep.
And that'll move it.
Correct.
Oh wow. Okay. So I kind of want to watch this happen. I've never tried this before. So I'm gonna pull this up so we can see the elements. And what we should see here's our items. So I'm gonna refresh the page. Let's look at our items again. And what I want to see is this item 3 should drop out. There it is. And it's now down on the bottom. Dang, I did not realize that append would do that. I thought that I had to like pull it out of the DOM and then put it back into the DOM. So that already worth the price of admission.
So append does it. Append child does it as well. That's the old version.
Okay.
And it's just cleaner. Before does it. After does it.
Nice. That is really, really cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've
much cleaner.
And so this is good because like you said, like if we had put position relative on this div, we'd never be able to drag outside. Like we'd be stuck in this div. So in order to drag from this one to this one, we're kind of short circuiting that. We take it outside of everything. And then you're saying when we get into our new div or wherever we drop it, we'll be able to say like put it in this one instead.
Yep.
Nice. Okay. All right. I'm following.
Yeah, and we're gonna do it step by step. So the first thing we're gonna do is to be able to drag it around and then put it anywhere we want. So let's not worry about where the final thing is going to be put on.
Okay.
So we'll leave it there for now. To drag, we kind of have to go into the mouse move function move, because we want to move the thing around, right? And there's this thing called movement X and movement Y. Are you on Chrome?
I am on Chrome.
Okay, because whatever I'm talking about now only works on Chrome, because the event.movement X and movement Y. So there's event.movement X with a capital X, yes. So movement X is the delta for the amount that was moved since the last pointer event.
Okay.
And Y is the delta since the last pointer event as well.
Okay.
If we do not if you want to support Safari, which does not support movement X and movement Y, even though it says it supports, so I found that out the hard way. You kind of have to use the old version, which is screen X and screen Y, and then you have to create a new variable to track the previous screen X and screen Y and do the delta yourself.
Okay. Can I ask a question about so like we can, using the browser, we can just determine where the pointer is on the screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so would it make sense to just put the object like at the mouse position so we don't have to calculate deltas at all?
Well, the thing is, if you put the position, how would you put it on the mouse position?
Isn't it? So if I was going to do it, I would. Couldn't you just set it? Couldn't you just set it to be like, I want the top to be mouse position Y minus 10 and the left to be like mouse position X minus 10 so that it kind of looks like you're dragging it? Would that work?
I think it's possible, but then you are kind of doing it in a forced way because
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely solving that problem with a hammer, that's for sure.
the way I'm envisioning is if I click on the bottom right-hand corner of this thing, I want that mouse to stay on the bottom right-hand corner.
I got you. I understand.
And more natural that way. So I use this one.
Okay. That's exactly the reasoning I was looking for. So that's perfect. Okay. So are we going to use movement X or did you want to use the other one?
We're going to do, let's do this one because it's simpler.
Okay.
If you go to the MDN for movement X, you'll find the old version. So people who are interested in that can check that. Chrome and Firefox, not Safari. Yep, so that's that. Current event.movement X equals to current event.screen X minus previous event.screen X. So you kind of, if you really want to, you have to build that code out yourself.
Right. So this is our polyfill if we need it. Okay. So then to actually use this, what should I do?
Do you want to use the polyfill version?
I think for learning purposes, let's just use this. This is kind of fun. We can just say it's Chrome only for now, and that's okay.
Okay, cool. So what we want to do is to move the element based on the delta. So we're going to change the target's left and top position based on its current position plus the delta.
Equals event target left plus movement X, and then I can copy all of this. And
it's going to be a little bit long because it's going to be event.target.style.left.
Oh, style. Okay.
And
that's right. Right.
We don't need event.target because event.target is the item anyway. So we're just going to use item. That's fine too.
Perfect.
And the problem with this is we have to give it a pixel value. So we have to do parse float to the item.style.left because we can potentially have a decimal point.
Okay. So
then
parse float, and then
we wrap the entire thing in the template editor and add a pixel behind.
Okay. No. Okay. So here. Yeah,
that should work.
Oh, it wrapped so weird. Okay, that's fine. But no, this is great. So this then so parse float is a built-in browser function that will identify if this is like a 25.12 whatever, because the browser will give us really long repeating floats, and this just makes sure that we actually use it as that and not as a string, right? Which allows us to actually do math instead of like concatenating strings because JavaScript overloaded this operator. And then we turn it back into a string using this template string so that we can coerce it to a pixel value. And if I'm correct in reading this, if I save and refresh the page right now, this will work.
This will work a little bit wonkily because we didn't set up the item.style.left to be the actual position where it is at right now.
So it's going to be...
Right?
Oh, wait. What just happened? Why aren't you doing your thing?
Because we're moving in, we're placing this thing into... we can console log and see if what's item.style.left and item.style.top and see what's wrong here.
Okay, so we'll do item.style.left and .top. And we'll look at the console here. Refresh. And it's not firing at all, which means I did something wrong. So on pointer move. Did I miss something up? Should be captured.
We can log a hello or something just to make sure.
Yeah.
Because with long strings of code like that, usually we can get some problems with it.
What's going on? What don't you like? It doesn't like something that we're doing. So it's doing this part. Okay. does it get to here? Is this like some real... Okay, so it gets to there, and then it should be calling move, but it doesn't actually call move.
Did you release your mouse pointer already? Not yet, right?
Well, here Oh
yeah, you have to be on. Oh yeah, I forgot about it. You have to be on the element itself too when mouse move happens.
But I thought we captured the pointer.
Yeah, I think capture pointer does that, but I'm not so sure anymore at this point. I probably need to look at it a little bit.
Interesting. Okay, so something is going wrong because we're not getting any value in item style.left. Do I need to like set them initially to be like 0?
Yeah, we either need it, rather than setting them to 0, I prefer to set them to the current position instead.
Okay.
Because we cannot know where these items are, and the easiest way to do that is to use get bounding client rect to get the bounding box of the element.
And we would do that in down, right?
In down, yeah, because it's a setup.
Okay, so item dot style dot left is going to equal item get bounding client rect, and then is that left?
Yep.
And then we'll do the same thing for top. Okay.
Again, I think we need the pixel value.
Oh, okay. No. Here. Oh my God. Come on.
This is a point where I'll start creating variables to hold the stuff because the code is getting a little bit too long for me. But that's me.
Oh wait! Oh, look at it go. Okay, so
yeah, right.
Look at it run away. Oh, but there it goes. No, this is good. This is good. So we sort of have this working. It's not quite right because I can't pull it left. I can only like push it. But it's still cool because I can like nudge it around the page by doing this. So we're getting closer. This is feeling more and more like what we want it to do. Okay. So then
let's debug a little bit here because by the time you click on it, it should appear on the same position and not fly away. So let's figure out what's wrong with that.
Oh, you know what it is? It's adding dragging first. So maybe what we should do is...
I don't think that's a problem, though. We should probably...
It definitely is. So what that split second where it's position absolute before we apply the left and top gives it time to bounce off the screen. So once we add that, it does what we want. And this is... Okay, so here we go. Now we've got drag and drop because... And notice what Zell was talking about. If I click down here in this corner, it stays stuck to that... Well, kind of. Hello? No, come back.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why
What am I doing?
The event.pointer ID set pointer capture thing isn't working, but it seems to be working on my side.
I'm wondering, yeah, did I mess something up? It's event.pointer ID. And so we set that here, and then in pointer up,
we remove it and pointer out. I don't think there's anything wrong here, though.
We release it. So maybe what I'll do is I'll release the pointer capture first. No, I'm still losing it. I don't know. I'm not sure why it's not working for me. But I think...
In my case, I tried releasing the pointer capture after the removing of eventlessness. I'm not too sure if that does anything. And I don't think it should.
No, I still lost it.
Interesting. I'm not sure why.
Who knows? And I think this is where you start to look at like why frameworks get so big is because we're going to write code to handle this edge case. And then if we release this as a library, somebody would find another edge case and we would write code to add that edge case. And so we'll start to discover like why there are so many things happening.
I'm just curious and wondering because it works perfectly on my side on code with this code. So I'm not too sure. If I have to debug, it will probably take a while.
Sure. And I think we're good enough as long as I don't like yank the cursor around, we're in good shape. So this will be okay for demo purposes. And we just know like there's a little further that we can go. And this maybe is a great case for like a follow-up article or something where we can dig a little deeper into how to really make this feel more like rock solid.
Sure. So let's move on then.
Okay.
If we want to put the element down anywhere we want to, it's more of we do not remove the dragging class. And okay, if we let me rephrase it. If we want to put the element wherever we want to put the element, the position should still be set to absolute. Make sense?
Okay.
But since you added the dragging class and we removed position absolute from it, so let's just skip that part of like putting the element wherever we want to. Let's move into the part where we want to put the element back to where we want to get it to.
Okay.
Am I making sense?
I think so. So what we're saying is right now when we click this, we put it at the end of the body. And when we want to put this down, we need to stick it in, like if we want to drag it into this div, then we need to move it away from the body and back inside this div. And which also means that we don't want it to be position absolute anymore. Or I guess it kind of doesn't matter if it's position absolute if this one is relative. But
if you want to drag from say the first box to the second box, it doesn't matter. It's actually if you want to move from the first box to the second box, we want the position to change back to static. So whatever we have here has the correct code. But there is also an alternative drag and drop, which is simpler and doesn't really, and most tutorials simply stop there.
Okay.
Is to have the position set to absolute still. But if the position is set to absolute, you can move the element wherever you want to and you drop it wherever you want it. And it's
right.
But we remove the absolute by virtue of removing the class at the same time. So we kind of skip that step in that sense.
I got you. So if instead of putting it here, I put it here, then what we will see is that I can put this anywhere I want on the page, and it'll just stick there.
Yep.
As long as I don't move too fast. So yeah, and so this is fine, kind of, but this is now completely decoupled from the rest of the app. Like there's no structure anymore or hierarchy. The app is just like chaos. So now what we're doing is we're taking it out of the structure so that we can move it, and then we want to put it back into the structure when we drop it.
Correct.
Okay.
So let's start by creating a preview of where this item will be dropped.
Okay.
So to do that, we need to clone the item. So we have the exact same size and properties for it. We can use clone node.
And that's true, right?
We do not need to clone everything unless you want to.
I don't.
And then we need to, before we remove the item from the document flow, we need to append the clone node before the item.
Where
so before line 62, we do item.before clone.
For clone?
Yep.
Okay.
And we kind of need to style the clone a little bit.
Okay, and so we can do like a
let's do like a background of EEE or something. Yeah.
And then if we have that, we can set like a item.clone, and that'll change the background color to here. Okay, so yeah, look at it go.
Yeah.
It did get the dragging class, so we wouldn't want that. So we would add that here. There we go. So now we've got our item kind of stays behind, and we're able to move this one around. And And as we can see, it's kind of not cleaning up after itself right now, but that's fine.
Yeah, we can remove it later. So let's say, for example, we want to put it back to the same position at this point. Can we add a border around the clone, because
Yeah.
this right now it seems a little bit it's getting to me because it's not really accessible from the color perspective.
Yeah. So we'll just make it, oops.
Yeah.
2
perfect.
pixel solid black. And now it's like pretty obvious.
Yeah. No,
A real designer would not let that fly, but that's fine. We're not.
it's cool. We're
not
winning
claiming
design awards
design
anyway,
today.
though. We are already winning design awards. What are you saying?
Okay, so now we can see when I drag, I see it moving around, and we can see where it was. So the next thing then would be to identify where we can drop it and
let's
move
drop
the
it
clone
to the
there.
same. Let's drop it to the same location first.
Okay.
So to drop it to the same location, we kind of want to go into up because that's where we drop.
Okay.
And we want to say, if you're dropping it we want to drop it to where the clone is. So what we can do is clone dot after item.
Okay. And then would we
then we want
clone
to
remove?
the clone. Yeah, clone dot remove.
Okay. And everything else stays the same, right?
Yep.
Okay. So now I move it, I drop it, and it goes home. That is really slick. Yeah, this is cool. Okay. And we can see if we look in the DOM, we'll watch those elements change too. So we'll be able to see here that we'll get a clone. So there's our clone. And we can see at the bottom, the very bottom, I can't move my mouse to highlight it, but do you see it highlighting at the very bottom of the elements panel? As we move around, we can see the left and top getting adjusted. And when I drop, that one's going to be dropped right back into the clone, and the clone disappears. So that is really cool. That's really nice.
If you want to clean things up totally, you might want to change the style, left and top, back to nothing.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we could just remove those entirely, honestly. What would we do? We could just like delete item.
I think the easier way is to set item.style.top to an empty string. That's what I do. And
Okay.
because an empty string is not valid, it removes it.
Oh, I got you. Okay. Oh, I guess I should actually look at this to see if it's working. Yeah, there we go. Leaves us with an empty style.
Yeah, I like to clean things up and make sure the hygiene is there before I move on.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Okay.
Okay.
This is powerful. I mean, like, I'm appreciating how straightforward this is, right? Like, the browser inconsistencies are still there a little bit. You know, we've got the support issues with some of these terms like movement X and stuff. But this is so much more pleasant than the back in the day of how you would have to kind of almost do like user agent sniffing to figure out which styles or which properties or which prefixes you had to apply. So this is really nice.
Yeah. So the next thing is we kind of need to use. I think this is a little bit magical to me because we need to start using a new property, and I did not know that this property exists all the way back. Like this property I'm going to talk about is document.element from point.
Document.element what now?
Element from point.
Element from point.
Yeah. So element from point kind of.
And where am I putting this? Is this in move?
In move.
Okay.
Right after all the other code. So what we're essentially doing here is, when we move the element into the drop zone, for example, we kind of want to know whether this element is in the drop zone or not.
Oh, I have no idea that this was real. Okay.
I had no idea too. And apparently it supports all the way back to Internet Explorer too.
Wow. That's really wild. Okay.
Yeah.
And so this is a function, and it takes an x and a y.
So we want to pass in the item.style.top and item.style.left.
Okay. Okay. And so what is this telling us?
It returns an element. So let's say it returns an element at that coordinate that is at the topmost level.
Okay. And
which means, so you can do a console log for the results of this one and give it a try.
okay, so this is in our move event. And so if we go and we look at our console and I move this around, provided double value is non-finite. Oh, parse float.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. We can do that. Parse float. That is the least helpful error message. There. Okay. Okay, so here's our... Hold up. I am... Wait a minute.
See that?
What? No way.
Yeah.
So this is determining the closest element to where our mouse is?
To
Holy
where
crap.
the point is, not the mouse, to where that point is.
That is wild. I had no idea that existed. That is, wow. Okay. So that's going to make a lot of things a lot easier. And you said this is supported all the way back to Internet Explorer.
Yep.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm thinking of all the things I overcomplicated because I didn't know this existed. All right.
Well, I only know this existed after looking around for tutorials for building this thing up with vanilla JavaScript.
So, okay. So then basically we're able to get a drop target, or drop target element, I should say.
Yep. I think you can say that. I call it hit test just to make it simple.
Hit test. Cool.
Yeah.
Do that.
Just one more point about this element from point. So if you undo the rotate, it doesn't work anymore.
If you undo the rotate?
Yeah. So if you do not rotate the element, it doesn't work. But there's a way to make it work. You can just
Is that because of like transformations? Like it needs to be transformed?
No, it's because the rotate creates. Oh, let me get the where's that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so when this is the box, right?
Right.
And let's say we are hitting this point here, this point on my finger.
Okay.
Here, right? When you rotate this element, the point is still there.
So I see.
It gets past this element and it goes beyond. So if you do not rotate, it doesn't get past this element itself. And to make it work, we need to set pointer events to none. So it passes through as a hit test.
And we would do that only on dragging.
We can do that only on dragging, yes.
Okay. So
but we can do it as a setup. I think we do it as a setup. That's fine too. So it's fine either way.
Okay. So now even if we don't rotate, this will still get to the element.
Yeah. I think you want to try it.
So, okay. So I'll just turn this off. Here's my transform. So let's get that out of there. And then we'll pull this up and let's take a look. Or wait, I got to reload. Okay. So it's no longer wait. Uh-oh.
You can't have pointer events none during the dragging because that kind of kills it off, unfortunately.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, so our pointer just loses track of it entirely.
Yeah, correct. So
okay.
But the thing is, we cannot have it on item itself because that means we cannot click on item. So this means we need to use JavaScript to add pointer events none.
Okay, and we add this at which point?
Down.
Down. So at pointer down, I'm going to add item.style. Like this?
Yep. Equals to none. You should add this before after dragging or before dragging, but definitely after the clone.
Like here?
Before the pen, I would say, just to keep things a little bit cleaner. Yeah.
Okay. So here. Oh, I lost it again. Did I forget to save?
Doesn't work?
Position absolute. What's going on? Why doesn't it want to work?
Huh, interesting. This is wow. Somehow things don't seem to work on your side.
Okay, so
target.style.pointer events equals to none. Yeah, that was what I had.
So I wonder if
is it not moving at all right now?
it's not moving at all right now. I lose access to it.
Oh, I think it's the same problem with the set capture, I think, because we're not having the pointer events on the element itself. So if set capture works, this one will work at the same time. If set capture doesn't, this wouldn't work.
Okay, and so we're losing set capture. And set capture. Right, where are you calling it at the top? Where are you calling it in your?
I am calling it just before I add the event listeners.
Just before the event listener. So let's go do that. And let's see if that makes any difference. It absolutely does.
Oh,
so
wow.
What changed? Why did that happen? So we set pointer capture after we...
I understand why now. I think it's because we shifted the element itself.
That's true. Yeah.
We removed it and we added it somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. So that makes sense because basically what we did was we were saying capture the pointer, but then we dropped it out of the DOM for a second to move it. And okay. So that totally makes sense. So this part here is what was breaking our pointer capture. So theoretically speaking, if I move this to right after that, it will still work.
Yeah.
And it does. Okay. So that was the problem. We can't move something around in the DOM and expect that pointer capture to still work. Okay. I get it. I understand. But that's good. So now, actually, if I come back here and I refresh, I can whip this around all I want and I don't lose it. And
you
then
can even whip it out of the door, out of the window and come back.
Ooh, beautiful. Yeah, that's really nice. Now, what I did lose, though, is now I can't click it again because we set the pointer events to none.
Yeah, and you have to reset it back to whatever that was in the initial one.
Okay, so we'll just get rid of that, and we can just probably remove it entirely.
I think so.
There we go. Okay, beautiful. So that's doing what we want. All right, so I think the next thing then, we have our target node, our hit test, and so we just need to we need to append the element in that, right?
We were testing whether the hit test would work when you remove the rotate, remember? So let's try.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Did I remove the... Oh, I'm not console logging anymore. It does.
Yeah, so that's the trick. If you're using element from point.
Got it. Okay, so let's put that rotate back in because I do like that.
Yeah, likewise. But I just want to make sure the version that doesn't rotate, it works as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's such a good thing to call out too, because that would have mystified me. I was like, wait, but it worked before, and then like not realizing that it was because we rotated it and changed the DOM container would have been really, really confusing.
And then you have to go on a wild goose chase somewhere on the internet.
And so now that we've got our hit test, do I need to like track this outside, like a let hit test outside of move so that we can use it in up?
Nope, because in every hit test we are checking whether so this is the other thing. Like the reason why we have that preview is a trick to it, because if the hit test is in drop zone, what we can do is we move the preview into the drop zone.
I get it. Okay, so then we would do hit test dot append clone.
No.
No.
If hit test in drop zone, because you have to find the drop zone first.
Isn't this the drop zone? Like, don't we have it now?
True.
Oh, we need to check if it is the drop zone. So
if it's not the drop zone, it's
hit test, is it data? No, attribute?
Hit test, we kind of have to do a closest, hit test dot closest.
Closest.
Yep.
And then
data drop zone.
Okay. And the reason for that is that we might be like hovering over an item in the drop zone, but we don't care about children. We just care about that container.
Correct.
Okay.
And we just want to make sure there's a drop zone as a data attribute. Otherwise, this code shouldn't work.
Okay. And so then, because it might not be that element, do we want to do like a document dot query selector data drop zone append clone, right?
I think in this case, if it's not hovering onto the drop zone, then this doesn't work. So if it's hovering onto the drop zone, closest returns the drop zone element.
Yes. Well, so
we can actually do const hit test dot closest data drop zone and set it as a drop zone as a variable.
Got it. And so then this would be more like a if drop zone.
Or we can do if not drop zone return. So because everything else we require the drop zone, so let's do an early return.
Got it. Okay, so if not drop zone, oops, will return. If I can spell.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yep.
Okay, so then if I did this right, what we should see is when I move this element over the drop zone, our clone should, well, we're not removing it yet, but our clone should appear in the drop zone.
Yep.
Okay. Did I refresh the page?
Did you refresh the page?
There it is. Look at it go. Nice. Oh, and when I dropped it, wait. Okay, I just put some pieces together. So because of the way that we did this in up, where we put the item after the clone, we don't have to track where the item goes. We just have to track where the clone goes.
Yep.
Oh, that is slick. Okay. Okay, perfect.
And you can move the other two items down as well. It works.
And if I hover over the top of item 3, which is not the same hit test, it still works.
Yeah, because we're doing closest to the
Oh
drop
my
zone.
goodness.
And the key is right now, just to let you have a little bit more fun, if you go back into the HTML
Okay.
and set the pick zone to have the drop zone attribute as well. So add a data drop zone there.
Okay.
So you can drop onto the same zone.
Look at that. That is really cool. And so now we can move things back and forth. So this is really, really nice. I love that. I'm super excited about this.
Yeah. The only problem right now is we're always appending it to the end.
Right?
Yeah. So we are going to fix that. That one is the most complicated part of the code so far, I guess.
Okay.
But
so
I just
to time check, we've got 12 minutes left. Is that enough time to do the reordering?
We probably need about 10 minutes, I guess.
Okay, so we might have to rush a little bit. So let's.
If I blaze through it.
Yeah, let's blaze. So what should I do next?
So first of all, we want to check if the clone is in the drop zone or not first.
Mm-hmm.
So if the clone is not in the drop zone, we want to append the clone to the drop zone. Make sense? Because otherwise you do not want to do anything to it.
Okay. So I have the drop zone. If there's no drop zone, we return. So then here we want to say if drop zone query selector. No. What am I doing? Contains?
If clone dot closest data drop zone is drop zone, so triple equals
Drop zone. Okay.
drop zone dot append clone.
Drop zone dot append.
Yeah. And then we return the code here, so nothing goes beyond this point.
Okay.
All right, next we need to find the possible positions to put the clone in. And the easiest way to find that is to get a list of the drop zone children.
Okay. So we'll say drop zone children equals drop zone dot query selector all.
Dot children, that will be fine.
Oh, dot children. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
No, just like this.
Yeah, and just like this, correct. I will turn it into an array because I need to do a for each later. Okay, cool. At this point, so what we're going to do is for each of the drop zone children, we want to look through it.
Okay.
So if the hit test is the clone, we kind of don't want to do anything, right? So because we don't need to do anything. If hit test is clone, we return. So we skip the for each.
Okay.
Then for the rest of the elements, we want to make sure that it's an. Why do I have it? It's not the element here, but okay. I need to talk through this a little bit because I can't remember why I'm writing my code this way. But at this point, we want to check the current index. Wait, do I need to check? I might be blazing off a little bit too fast because I'm not doing things step by step by that time. Okay, let's do it step by step. Otherwise, it will not make sense.
Okay.
Okay.
Ooh, data drop zone has a typo. Yes, it does. Good call. Okay.
Data drop zone for each one. I'm testing against the reason why I'm doing this is I'm testing against each of these elements and see if I'm hovering onto them, which is why hit test is clone.
Got you. Okay.
If hit test is clone, we do not do anything.
Mm-hmm.
If hit test is the element, then we do something. But since we are doing a for each, that means we need to check every element to make sure that we are actually hovering onto something.
Okay, so if hit test equals child, then
we do something.
Okay, so we would need to swap the indexes, right?
So let's just do it this way first. I'm gonna show you some magic on this one. So you can try child.after clone.
Okay.
Okay, and then you go back, refresh, and you drag item 1. Drag only item 1, not the rest one for now.
Oh, whoops. I screwed.
Around.
Wait, what did I mess up here? What did I do wrong? I missed something.
All right, let's just chill and refresh a little bit.
If clone.closest drop zone equals drop zone dot append clone.
Not equals to drop zone.
Not equals drop zone.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, so I got the 1. Yep. Here.
Okay. Just put all of them down first. It works in one direction, but not in the other direction.
Okay.
So you drag item 1 onto item 2.
Oh, I see. So it works here. Got it. Okay.
All right, so this means the index of the drop zone with reference to how the index of the element is important.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to find the current index of the drop zone. I mean, the current index of the clone.
Okay, so would that be up above? We would need, or I guess, const clone index is like. Wait,
drop zone children.find index.
Do I want this outside of the loop?
You can do it inside. It's fine, but let's do it inside the child condition. No, because we do not need it so far up.
Okay, so so what I'm doing here is I'm saying find index where C equals clone. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
And then this one can live out here, right?
It can live out there, that's fine.
Okay.
And then we need the current element index. The one that the hit test where hit test is the child.
Equals, I'm just gonna copy this. And instead of clone, we'll check child. Okay, so now we have a clone index and current element index.
Yeah, I will put the current element index inside the second conditional.
inside here.
Yeah. Because we do not need that all the time. We just need it when we need it.
Right. Okay.
So if the clone index is less than the current index, we do after, which is what we are doing here.
Okay. So if clone index is less than the current element index. Okay. Then we'll do this.
Yep.
And the chat brings up a good point that we don't even need this actually, because we can just get index like this.
Oh yeah, cool.
So we can drop that out and we'll just do index.
Yeah.
Thank you for the heads up, Eco. And then, so here then we would return, and otherwise we would do child before.
We can do an else.
Oh, we'll do the else.
Yeah, do and then child before, correct.
Okay. Clone. Oh boy. All right. Is that going to work? Are we good?
Now try moving things around.
Beautiful. Okay. And then yeah. Okay. Look at that. We did it, y'all. And with 4 minutes to spare. I want to make sure that we have time to mention a couple things. I know that you mentioned you are also teaching this, right? You've got, is it a workshop, a course?
It's a course.
Cool. So how would somebody find that?
The link is learnjavascript.today.
Learnjavascript.today.
Yeah.
Okay. So go check that out. And is there anywhere else that people should go to find you or to learn more about this?
You can probably go to my blog. I'm just going to put that in the chat.
Is it this one here, or is it a different?
Yeah, that one.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, and then also make sure that you go and follow Zell on Twitter for more JavaScript information. Zell, this was fun, man. I love doing stuff like this. I feel like I learned a lot about the browser, which is always great. Chat, how do you feel about this? Do you have fun? And so before we wrap up, I want to do one more shout out to our sponsors. As always, we have live captioning going by the wonderful White Coat Captioning. We've got Amanda helping us out today. So thank you, Amanda. And that is made possible by our sponsors, Netlify, Fauna, Sanity, and Auth0, who all generously kick in and help make the show more accessible to more people. Make sure that you also go and check out our schedule, because we've got some really fun stuff coming up. Next week, Emma Bastian is coming on, and we are going to argue about tacos for 90 minutes. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to build some code to troll each other. Then, for a very special spooky episode, we're going to have Lynn Fisher, who is one of my favorite creative coders on the planet, teaching us how she does those amazing single div CSS illustrations. So that is going to be so much fun. And make sure you go look at the whole schedule, because there's just so much good stuff coming on. Like, it's going to be an absolute blast. So with that being said, I think we are at our end here. Zell, any final words before we wrap it up?
I guess we're cool. I had fun talking about this.
I'm glad you had fun. I had an absolute blast. Okay, so that being said, we're going to call this one done. Chat, stay tuned. We're going to raid. Zell, thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we will see you next time.